After tomorrow, you're not part of this family anymore. Those were the exact words my son's fiancé whispered to me the night before their wedding. I stayed home the next day, broken. But by noon, the wedding had completely fallen apart, and the reason why left everyone stunned. The night before my son's wedding, I thought I was about to step into the happiest chapter of his life, and maybe the most rewarding one of mine. After all, I had raised him alone for 27 years through sacrifices no one but me would ever understand. I had given up promotions, skipped vacations, and learned to stretch every dollar until it nearly tore apart. Also, my boy Daniel could grow up never feeling the weight of what we'd lost when his father walked out. To me, his wedding was not just about him marrying the woman he loved. It was proof that I had done something right, that I had raised a good man despite all odds. At least that's what I told myself. That evening, I stopped by the rehearsal dinner venue to deliver something I'd been working on for weeks, a scrapbook of Daniel's life, from his first steps to his high school graduation, from scraped knees to the day he got accepted into law school. I poured my entire heart into it, wanting his future wife, Jessica, to see just how much love and sacrifice had shaped the man she was about to marry. Jessica met me at the door. She was stunning as always. Perfect hair, perfect dress, perfect smile. But that night, her eyes were colder than I'd ever seen them. "Jessica," I said, holding out the scrapbook, "I made this for Daniel. I thought it might be nice for you two to flip through it together tonight." She didn't even glance at it. Instead, she leaned in close, her voice low enough that no one else could hear. "After tomorrow," she said, her lips curling into the faintest smirk, "you're not part of this family anymore." The words hit me like a fist to the stomach. I blinked, unsure I'd heard her correctly. "Excuse me." "You heard me?" she whispered. "You've done your part. You raised Daniel. Tomorrow he becomes my husband, my family. And you? You're just extra baggage. Don't embarrass yourself by clinging on." I stood frozen, clutching the scrapbook like it was the only thing keeping me upright. My throat burned, but no sound came out. She tilted her head, almost amused at my silence. "Honestly, I've tolerated you long enough. Daniel loves you, of course, but love makes people blind. I see you for what you really are, someone who doesn't belong in our future. So do us both a favor. Don't come tomorrow. Spare us all the drama." I should have said something. I should have defended myself. Instead, I felt the weight of years pressing down on me. Years of loneliness, of working double shifts, of pretending I wasn't exhausted just so Daniel wouldn't see how hard life was without his father. And now this woman, the one who claimed to love him, was telling me I was disposable. She patted my arm like I was a child who needed comforting. "Go home, Mrs. Miller. Sleep in. Tomorrow will be the best day of our lives, and we don't need you there to ruin it." I didn't remember leaving. I didn't remember driving home. What I do remember is sitting on the edge of my bed that night, staring at Daniel's scrapbook. My hands shook so badly the pages nearly tore. Every picture was a memory of love, sacrifice, and perseverance. And yet tomorrow I was supposed to pretend none of it mattered, that I didn't matter. Tears blurred my vision, but beneath the heartbreak, something else stirred. A cold, quiet anger. I whispered into the dark, "If I'm not part of this family after tomorrow, then tomorrow I won't be there at all." And so, the next morning, I stayed home. I thought the wedding would go on without me. I thought Daniel would marry her, and I'd be left behind, erased from my own son's story. But by noon that day, the entire city knew. The wedding hadn't happened, and the reason why would change everything. I suppose to anyone looking in from the outside, I was just another overprotective mother who didn't want to let go. That's the label Jessica had carefully painted onto me over the years. But the truth, I never clung to Daniel. I held him up because no one else would. When Daniel's father walked out, he didn't just leave me. He left his son. I'll never forget that night. Daniel was only 7, clutching his toy dinosaur in one hand and asking me, "When is Dad coming home?" I had no answer. Only tears I tried to hide behind forced smiles. From that day on, it was just the two of us. I became the breadwinner, the caretaker, the cheerleader, the disciplinarian. I worked double shifts at the hospital cafeteria, sometimes coming home so tired I fell asleep in my uniform. But every time Daniel brought home a gold star from school, every time he made me a crooked Mother's Day card, I knew it was worth it. He grew into a man who was kind, intelligent, and ambitious. He studied harder than anyone else I knew. He wanted to be a lawyer, not because of the money, but because he said, "Mom, I want to protect people who can't protect themselves, like you always protected me." That sentence alone carried me through 1,000 sleepless nights. So when he brought Jessica home for the first time 3 years ago, I truly wanted to like her. She was gorgeous, confident, the kind of woman who seemed to light up every room. Daniel was smitten, and I wanted him to be happy. But underneath the charm, I noticed small cracks. She was polite to me in public, but when Daniel left the room, her tone shifted, sharp, dismissive, as though speaking to me was a chore. She never asked about my life, my work, or even Daniel's childhood stories. Instead, she'd steer conversations toward herself, her career in marketing, her glamorous friends, her future plans. I brushed it off at first. Maybe she was just nervous. Maybe she didn't know how to connect with me. But as time passed, the cracks grew wider. On Daniel's birthday last year, I baked his favorite cake, chocolate fudge with peanut butter frosting. It was our tradition since he was 10. When I brought it out, Jessica smiled sweetly and said, "Oh, how quaint. But Daniel's on a new diet now. I'll make sure he doesn't touch this." She took the knife out of my hand and set the cake aside, untouched. Daniel laughed it off, kissed my cheek and said, "Thanks, Mom. You didn't have to." But I saw the flicker of guilt in his eyes. He knew I had stayed up half the night making that cake. Still, I swallowed my pride because that's what mothers do. Every time Jessica dismissed me, every time she undermined me, I told myself it didn't matter. She loved Daniel. That was enough. Or so I tried to believe. The engagement should have been my chance to finally feel like I was gaining a daughter, not losing a son. Instead, it only widened the distance between us. Jessica took full control of the wedding planning. I wasn't asked to join a single dress fitting, not one cake tasting, not even the seating chart discussion. When I gently asked if I could help with anything, she gave me a tight smile and said, "Don't worry, Mrs. Miller. We've got it under control. You just show up looking nice, okay?" It stung, but I smiled, nodded, and bit my tongue for Daniel's sake, because that's what I always did. But the truth is, there were warning signs I should never have ignored. Like the way Jessica always seemed more interested in Daniel's potential salary than his dreams. The way she rolled her eyes when he mentioned pro bono work. The way she introduced him at parties, not as my fiancé Daniel, but as Daniel, the soon-to-be lawyer. Looking back now, I realized she didn't see my son as a man. She saw him as a trophy. And the night before the wedding, when she finally spat those venomous words into my face, every tiny warning sign I had brushed off for years finally made sense. I wasn't losing my son to love. I was losing him to ambition, to greed, to someone who saw me, his mother, as a loose thread that needed cutting out of her perfect little picture. And I let her. I actually let her at least until the next morning when fate decided to intervene in a way none of us could have predicted. The morning of the wedding, I woke up before sunrise. For a moment, my body moved on autopilot, boiling water for coffee, laying out the pale blue dress I had bought months ago, the one Daniel once said, "Mom, that color looks beautiful on you." But then Jessica's words came back like a knife twisting in my gut. "After tomorrow, you're not part of this family anymore." I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the steam rising from my mug. My hands trembled, not from age, but from the weight of a decision I already knew I'd made. I wasn't going. For the first time in 27 years, I was choosing myself over Daniel. Maybe it was selfish. Maybe it was cowardly. But I couldn't bring myself to sit in that church pew, smiling politely while watching him vow his life to a woman who had already erased me from the picture. I placed the scrapbook back in its box and slid it under my bed. He wouldn't see it today. He might never see it. As the morning light spilled into the room, my phone buzzed. Messages from relatives, friends, even Daniel himself. "Mom, we're heading to the venue now. Can't wait to see you. Where are you? Everyone's asking. You're running late, aren't you?" Typical. I turned the phone face down. Somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered, "You're making a mistake." But louder still was the echo of Jessica's smirk, her dismissive tone, her cruel certainty that I was nothing more than baggage. If that's what she wanted, I'd give it to her. By 9 SAO, the calls grew more frantic. Daniel left a voicemail, his voice tinged with panic. "Mom, where are you? Jessica says you weren't feeling well last night, but I know that's not true. Please just call me back. Please." I pressed the phone to my chest, my heart aching. Every instinct screamed to call him, to rush to the church, to be there for the boy I had raised through every storm. But I couldn't. Not this time. At 10, my sister knocked on my door. She lived across town but had driven over in her bridesmaid's dress when she noticed I wasn't at the venue. "Margaret, what on earth are you doing?" she demanded, barging inside. "Everyone's looking for you. The ceremony starts in an hour." I shook my head slowly. "I'm not going." Her jaw dropped. "Not going? Are you insane? Your only son is getting married." I met her gaze, tears brimming in my eyes. "He's marrying someone who told me to my face that I'm not part of his family anymore. She doesn't want me there. So why should I go?" My sister's anger faltered, replaced by disbelief. "Jessica said that last night, looked me in the eye and said it." She sank into a chair, speechless. For a long moment, the only sound was the tick of the wall clock. Finally, she whispered, "Oh my God." I nodded. "I won't sit there like a fool pretending I belong." She pressed her hands over her mouth, torn between anger and pity. "But Margaret, if you don't go, people will blame you. They'll say you abandoned your son on his wedding day." I let out a bitter laugh. "Then let them. I've been judged my whole life. What's one more?" At 10:45, I watched from my front window as neighbors climbed into their cars, dressed in suits and gowns, heading to the church. My own car keys sat untouched on the counter. I didn't move. When the church bells began to ring at 11, I sat in silence, staring at the scrapbook hidden under my bed. That should have been the end of my story. A mother too broken, too humiliated to stand by her son on the most important day of his life. But by noon, the first call came. It was my sister again, her voice shaking. "Margaret," she whispered, "the wedding, it's not happening." My breath caught. "What do you mean it's not happening?" Her words tumbled out, half choked, half disbelieving. "Jessica, she—" Oh, God. "Margaret, you need to hear this. You need to sit down." And in that instant, I realized something I never expected. By not showing up, I hadn't ruined the wedding. Jessica had, and the reason why would rock all of us to the core. When my sister's trembling voice came through the phone, I felt my heart stop. "The wedding isn't happening," she repeated, her words sharp with disbelief. "Jessica's been exposed." I gripped the phone tighter. Exposed. Exposed how? "Margaret, it's complicated, but you need to hear this from me before it spreads everywhere. Daniel found out the truth minutes before the ceremony." My knees buckled. I sank onto the couch. "What truth?" She exhaled shakily. "That Jessica's been lying about everything." Later, when I pieced the story together from frantic phone calls, texts, and news that spread like wildfire among the guests, The events unfolded like something out of a bad soap opera. At 10:30, half an hour before the ceremony, Daniel had been waiting nervously in a small side room at the church. His groomsmen tried to calm him down, joking, adjusting his tie, patting him on the back. But then his best man, a childhood friend named Mark, burst in, pale and shaking. "Daniel, you need to see this," Mark said, holding out his phone. On the screen was a series of photos. Jessica, his bride to be wrapped in the arms of another man. The pictures weren't old. They were from 2 weeks ago. Daniel's face drained of color. "What? What is this?" "Her neighbor sent these to me," Mark said, his voice breaking. "He thought you deserved to know before you made the biggest mistake of your life." The man in the photos wasn't a stranger. He was Jessica's boss, the one she'd gushed about endlessly, claiming he was her mentor. Daniel staggered back, his chest heaving. In that moment, the truth he'd been refusing to see came crashing down. The late nights at the office, the secretive texts, the way Jessica always brushed off his concerns with a laugh and a kiss. It was all true. She had been cheating on him. But it wasn't just the affair. As guests began filing into the church, whispers spread like wildfire. Jessica's maid of honor, drunk on nerves and champagne, had let something slip. Jessica hadn't just been unfaithful. She had also been scheming. Her family had pushed her into the engagement because Daniel was on the cusp of a lucrative law career. To them, marriage wasn't about love. It was a transaction, a merger. The prenup Jessica had insisted on drafting wasn't to protect Daniel. It was designed to funnel his future assets into her control. Her father, a businessman with a trail of bankruptcies, had even bragged to a guest that once Jessica married Daniel, our financial troubles will disappear. By the time Daniel stormed into the bridal suite, he was shaking with rage. Jessica, radiant in her gown, turned with a smile. "Sweetheart, are you ready?" He held up the phone. "What the hell is this?" Her face faltered. For the first time, the mask slipped. "That's not what it looks like," she began. "It's exactly what it looks like," Daniel roared. "2 weeks ago with your boss." Her bridesmaids gasped. The room went silent. Jessica's voice turned sharp. "Daniel, listen to me." "No, you listen." His voice broke. "You told my mother she wasn't part of this family. You tried to cut out the one person who's always been there for me, and all this time you were lying to my face." Jessica's cheeks flushed red with fury. "Your mother. Is that what this is about? She's been poisoning you against me from the start. She's jealous, Daniel. She doesn't want to let go." But the words fell flat because in that moment, Daniel realized the truth. I hadn't needed to poison him against her. She had poisoned herself. By 11:15, the church was in chaos. Guests whispered, gasped, checked their phones as the news rippled through the pews. The pastor tried to restore order, but Daniel walked down the aisle, not with a bride, but with a grim announcement. "There will be no wedding today," he said, his voice shaking but firm. "Jessica has betrayed my trust. This ceremony is canceled." Gasps filled the church. Jessica's parents rose in protest, her mother screeching, "Don't you dare humiliate our daughter like this." But Daniel didn't flinch. She humiliated herself. Jessica, furious, chased after him, screaming about lies and misunderstandings. But the pictures didn't lie. Neither did the whispers of her ulterior motives. By noon, the guests were filing out in stunned silence. Some shook their heads. Some muttered about wasted money and ruined plans. Others whispered sympathy for me, though I hadn't even been there. When my sister finished relaying the story, I sat frozen, the phone pressed to my ear. My heart ached for Daniel, for the heartbreak he didn't deserve. But beneath the sorrow, another feeling bloomed. Vindication. Jessica had told me I wasn't part of the family, and now there was no family for her to claim. I whispered into the phone, almost to myself, she wanted me gone. But she's the one who's gone now. That should have been the end of Jessica's story, but it wasn't, because when people like her lose everything, they don't go quietly. And I was about to find out just how far she and her family were willing to go to claw back what they thought was theirs. For the rest of that day, my phone didn't stop buzzing. Friends, neighbors, even distant relatives, all calling, texting, sending links to social media posts. The canceled wedding was everywhere. One headline read, "Law student calls off wedding minutes before ceremony after fiancé's secret affair exposed." But another, more venomous post caught my eye. "Mother-in-law sabotages wedding. Tears family apart." My stomach dropped. Jessica's family was already rewriting the story. By evening, whispers had spread that I was the reason the wedding never happened, that I'd fed Daniel lies about Jessica, that I had convinced him not to go through with it. It was absurd. Daniel had seen the photos with his own eyes, but lies travel faster than truth, and Jessica's parents were masters of performance. At one point, Jessica herself even went on social media, posting a photo of her in her ruined wedding dress, mascara streaking her cheeks with the caption, "Some people just can't let go. Some mothers don't know when to stop." The comments flooded in. Strangers offering sympathy, friends demanding to know what kind of mother ruins her son's happiness. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shout the truth from the rooftops. But Daniel begged me not to engage. "Mom, don't stoop to her level. Everyone close to us knows what really happened." But the problem was, not everyone close to us knew. Some believed her. Some questioned me outright. Even people I'd known for years asked, "Margaret, did you really tell Daniel not to marry her?" It cut deeper than I expected. After everything I had sacrificed, after everything Jessica had done, I was still the villain in someone else's story. And then things got worse. 2 days later, I received a legal letter. Jessica's family was threatening to sue me for defamation for emotional damages, even for interference with contractual relations. I stared at the paper, my hands trembling. Interference with contractual relations? What did that even mean? I brought it straight to my friend Linda, who worked at a law office downtown. She skimmed it and shook her head. "This is intimidation, Margaret. They're trying to scare you. Interference with contractual relations is just a fancy way of saying you ruined their financial plan, which, by the way, isn't even a legal argument in this case." "Financial plan?" I echoed. Linda set the papers down. "Margaret, didn't you know Jessica's family is bankrupt? Her father lost millions in failed investments. They needed her marriage to Daniel to stabilize their finances. That prenup, it was written to protect them, not Daniel. If he'd signed it, half of everything he earned for the next 10 years. Years would have been siphoned into their accounts. My blood ran cold. So, it had never been about love. Not even for a second. It was about money, control, security. And when I refused to show up to the wedding, Jessica had taken the perfect opportunity to shift the narrative. She couldn't be seen as the greedy, unfaithful fiancé. So she painted me as the bitter, controlling mother. It was brilliant. Cruel, but brilliant. For the next week, the harassment didn't stop. Anonymous messages flooded my inbox. "Monster, jealous old hag. You ruined your son's life." And Jessica's family, they weren't done. One afternoon, I came home to find Daniel sitting on my couch, his face pale, holding a letter of his own. "They're threatening me too, Mom," he said quietly. "Jessica's father says if I don't publicly clear her name, he'll drag you into court. He'll ruin you financially." I sank into the chair across from him, my heart pounding. "What did you say?" Daniel's jaw tightened. I told him to go to hell. But I could see the worry in his eyes. He was fresh out of law school with student loans and a future just beginning. A lawsuit, even a frivolous one, could drain him before his career even started. "Mom," he whispered, "I don't know how much more of this I can take." They're relentless. I reached across the table and took his hand. For years, I had carried him through storms. Now he was trying to shield me. But this wasn't a storm we could weather with silence. No, this was war. That night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I remembered something Jessica had said during one of her smug little tirades months earlier. "You don't understand, Mrs. Miller. In this world, perception is everything. People believe what they see." She was right. People believed her because she played the part well. Beautiful, heartbroken, the victim of a cruel mother-in-law. If perception was her weapon, then I would have to fight back with truth. Not quietly, not politely, but publicly. And I had just the ammunition I needed. Because Jessica's betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was criminal. And once I exposed her family's financial schemes, no amount of crocodile tears would save her. I didn't know it yet, but the next chapter of this battle wouldn't be fought in whispers or gossip. It would be fought in the courtroom. And this time, I wouldn't be silent. For weeks, Jessica's smear campaign continued. Her family pushed their narrative at every turn. I was the bitter mother who couldn't let go, the woman who ruined her son's happiness out of jealousy. It might have worked if not for one thing. The truth has a way of clawing its way to the surface. I spent days collecting everything I could. Old emails, screenshots Daniel had saved, copies of the prenup Jessica's father had drafted laced with clauses so predatory, it looked more like a business acquisition than a marriage agreement. Linda, my friend at the law office, connected me with a financial investigator. Within a week, we uncovered exactly what Jessica's family had been hiding. A string of bankruptcies, debts, and lawsuits stretching back nearly a decade. They hadn't wanted Jessica to marry Daniel for love. They had wanted his career, his salary, his future, and the prenup. It was their golden ticket. Armed with this, I knew what I had to do. 2 weeks later, Jessica's family hosted a damage control dinner at a fancy hotel downtown. They invited Daniel, claiming it was to talk things over. He begged me not to come. He didn't want me ambushed. But I knew if I didn't face them, they'd never stop. So, I walked into that hotel ballroom wearing the pale blue dress I had bought for the wedding. The dress I never got to wear. Jessica's parents sat at the head of the table, Jessica beside them in a sleek black dress, her smile sharp as a blade. "Well," her father said smoothly, "look who decided to join us. Mrs. Miller, we were just discussing how to resolve this unfortunate misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" I repeated, my voice steady. "You mean the affair or the fraud?" Jessica's smile faltered. "You're still clinging to lies." I set a thick folder on the table. "Then maybe you can explain these financial records, bankruptcy filings, and this your prenup." Clause 14, subsection 3. In the event of divorce within the first 5 years, 75% of Daniel Miller's income shall be transferred into accounts held jointly by Jessica Hayes and her father, Richard Hayes. Gasps rippled around the table. Even Daniel, who had skimmed the document but never studied it in detail, turned pale. "You were planning to gut him," I said coldly. "You wanted his future earnings to bail out your family's failures." Jessica's father's face flushed crimson. "You have no right to. I have every right. I cut him off because you dragged my name through the mud. You painted me as a jealous, bitter woman. But now everyone will see the truth. You weren't marrying Daniel into your family. You were marrying his bank account." Jessica's eyes narrowed into slits. "You wouldn't dare make this public." I leaned forward, my voice low but razor sharp. "Watch me." The confrontation spiraled into chaos. Jessica tried to insist the photos of her affair were fake. Her father threatened lawsuits. Her mother cried about family unity. But Daniel didn't flinch this time. He stood up, his voice trembling but firm. "You lied to me. You lied about loving me, about wanting a life together. All you wanted was money." Jessica reached for his hand, her voice suddenly soft, pleading. "Daniel, please. I made mistakes. Yes, but it was you. I wanted you, not your money." But he shook his head. "If that were true, you wouldn't have tried to erase my mother. You wouldn't have told her she wasn't part of my family." The room went silent. Jessica froze, realizing her words had come back to haunt her. Her mask cracked completely, desperation spilling through. "She's turning you against me." "No," Daniel said, his voice breaking. "You did that all on your own." That night, I thought the confrontation would end with shouting, with threats, with broken promises. But instead, it ended with Daniel walking out of that hotel, my arm linked through his. Jessica followed, shouting after him, begging, sobbing, swearing it wasn't what it looked like. But for the first time, he didn't look back. By the time we reached the parking lot, Daniel stopped and turned to me. His eyes were red, his face pale, but there was a new strength in his voice. "Mom," he whispered. "I should have listened to you." I pulled him into my arms, holding him like I had when he was a child. "You see it now," I whispered. "That's all that matters." But as we drove away, Jessica's words echoed in my mind. "You wouldn't dare make this public." She was wrong because if she wanted a war of perception, then perception she would get. And when the truth came out, her carefully crafted facade would crumble beyond repair. In the days after the hotel confrontation, Jessica and her family tried everything. Threats, pleas, promises. Her father sent Daniel emails filled with legal jargon, insisting he was within his rights to pursue damages. Her mother left tearful voicemails begging Daniel to be reasonable. Jessica herself oscillated between rage and desperation. One moment swearing she'd ruin us, the next whispering that she still loved him. But it was too late. Because this time the truth wasn't confined to whispers in a ballroom. This time I made sure everyone knew. With Linda's help, I passed the prenup documents and financial records to a journalist who specialized in exposing financial scams. Within a week, the article went live. Behind the canceled wedding, the Hayes family's financial schemes uncovered. The piece was damning. It detailed the bankruptcies, the predatory prenup, even hinted at the affair that sparked the wedding day collapse. For the first time, the world saw the story not from Jessica's tear-streaked Instagram posts, but from the perspective of cold, hard evidence. And suddenly, the tide turned. Comments flooded in, not against me, but against Jessica. So she wanted his paycheck, not his heart. That poor mother-in-law. Can you imagine being told you're not family after raising your son alone? Jessica's a gold digger, plain and simple. The sympathy that had once been denied me poured in like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Daniel, though heartbroken, found strength in the truth. He threw himself into his new job at a law firm, determined to build a future on his own terms. And for the first time in months, he started to smile again. Not the forced, nervous smile he'd worn with Jessica, but the real one. One night as we sat on the porch drinking tea, he reached over and squeezed my hand. "Mom," he said softly, "I don't know how you stayed so strong. She nearly broke me." I looked at him. The boy I had raised, now a man forged by fire because I've been through worse. And because I knew one day you'd see her for who she was, it just took time. His eyes glistened. "You were always my family. Always. The truth possesses a heartbeat of its own. No matter how deeply it is buried beneath the velvet weight of deceit, predatory promises, or calculated smiles, it will inevitably claw its way into the light." Margaret and Daniel's journey is not just a tale of a shattered wedding. It is a profound masterclass in recognizing your own worth and trusting the quiet ferocity of a parent's intuition. To anyone who has ever been made to feel like extra baggage in their own life, to every soul who has sacrificed in the shadows only to be met with arrogance, let this story be your armor. Never shrink yourself to fit into a picture painted by someone else's greed. True family is not forged in transactional mergers or financial schemes. It is built on the unshakable foundation of loyalty, sacrifice, and unconditional love. When toxicity knocks at your door disguised as a blessing, have the profound courage to stand your ground and let the mask fall. Sometimes, the most elegant retribution isn't found in anger, but in the unstoppable alchemy of the truth. If this story stirred a fire within you, if you believe in the triumph of authenticity over manipulation and the indomitable strength of a woman who knows her worth, then you belong here with us. Crown yourself with the truth and join a community that celebrates the ultimate victory over toxicity. Subscribe to Queen's Revenge, because every true queen knows that real power doesn't need to shout. It simply waits for the right moment to let the truth roar. Hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and walk with us as we continue to expose the darkness, one glorious triumph at a time.